Federal government employees have been protesting.
Hello and welcome, and thanks for tuning in. You're watching Gravitas. My name is Priyanka Sharma. Here's what's coming up on the show tonight. China is a bully. It has zero respect for borders. Time and again it flouts international law. This is no secret. China has quietly been increasing its ability to wage war at sea. Look at the drills, the warships, China's trade rules, its tactics of intimidation with neighbors. A new report now has made some shocking allegations. It said at least 55 Chinese soldiers have died in a submarine accident. This happened in the Yellow Sea. China, of course, has denied any speculation. In our cover story tonight on Gravitas, we tell you about a new theatre of conflict, the Yellow Sea. China wants absolute control of the Yellow Sea, but are its tactics backfiring? Also on the show, leave or face expulsion, says Pakistan to illegal immigrants. Pakistan has revealed that 14 out of the 24 suicide bombings were carried out by Afghans. On the show, we tell you the real reason why Pakistan is telling Afghan refugees to get out. Who fired the gun? Was there one killer or two? The mystery surrounding the assassination of John F. Kennedy enthralls everyone to this day. We tell you the real story. 1 year since Mahsa Amini's death, and Iran is on edge again. Another young woman is fighting for her life. A rights group says that she was beaten into a coma by Iran's feared morality police. On the show, we bring you her story. Our cover story tonight is from what is now becoming the most dangerous stretch of water in the world, the Yellow Sea. The semi-enclosed body of water is located between mainland China and the Korean Peninsula. If the wars of men and nations were not enough, even this region is becoming into a new theatre of conflict. China wants absolute control of the Yellow Sea. It wants to deploy its contingents there, station its warships, control shipping routes, and dictate trade rules. It monitors all warships that pass through it. This is mostly because of Taiwan, a territory which China claims to own. Among China's defense or offense mechanism is also an underwater trap. This underwater trap is used to block submarines. Too bad that these tactics now seem to be backfiring. On the 21st of August, China got caught in its own trap. Look at this report now. At least 55 Chinese sailors are feared dead after their submarine got entangled in a trap which China had laid for its enemies. It has ended up ensnaring its own people. The report states that a Chinese PLA submarine struck a chain and anchor obstacle that was placed for Western vessels. The collision caused system failure. The submarine's oxygen ran out, its batteries depleted. The crew got poisoned. A total of 55 Chinese officials allegedly died. This includes 22 officers, 7 officer cadets, 9 petty officers and 17 sailors. And the cause of all their deaths is believed to be hypoxia. The source of this information is British intelligence. China naturally has denied the whole story. But there is credible evidence that this is precisely what happened. And if it did happen, then this is a huge embarrassment for China. A bitter reminder of how its muscle flexing can boomerang. For the last 6 years, China has tried to convert this region into its playground. It has bullied foreign fishing vessels, rammed into ships that it perceives to be a threat, and tried to alter the routes of any ships passing through. Not just in the Yellow Sea, but also beyond. Take the South China Sea, for instance. It begins where the Yellow Sea ends. China has been bullying the Philippines here. Let me explain. 2 weeks back, it installed an underwater barrier to hinder the movement of Filipino vessels. This barrier was a floating cordon of sorts. It was placed near the Scarborough shoal. The Philippines removed this barrier. It even released a video of its divers doing so. It seems this decision hasn't gone down too well with China. 24 hours back, a Filipino fishing boat collided with a foreign vessel. The collision led to the deaths of 3 fishermen and other 8 crew members who also suffered injuries. Guess where this accident happened? Near the Scarborough shoal, the same area where Beijing laid its underwater barrier. Was this collision an act of revenge by Beijing? It certainly seems so. However, the identity of the vessel remains unknown. So the authorities are not naming China just yet. They're trying to investigate who owned it. But the thing is, China's track record speaks for itself. You see, it has a history of ramming its fishing vessels into smaller boats. A history of bullying boats that pass through its self-claimed regions on land and on sea. Let's talk about the Scarborough Shoal, for instance, a small but strategic reef and a fishing ground. It has been a major source of tension between Manila and Beijing. But what exactly is it? Well, the Scarborough Shoal is essentially a rock. Located atop an atoll or a ring-shaped island, it is a disputed territory. It is claimed both by China and the Philippines, and every time a Filipino vessel passes through here, there's a fat chance that it gets rammed by a Chinese ship. This has been the status quo for several years now, but now China's trying to up the ante. It has increased its overtures and acts of foul play. And every time it is questioned about this, it blames the United States. Listen to this.
The South China Sea was in peace until the US came to disrupt it. The US provision of 2 outdated patrol boats to the Philippines, which are not of much practical use, exposes its actual role as a disruptor and saboteur of peace and stability in the South China Sea. We urge the US to stop meddling in the South China Sea issue and stop undermining peace and stability in the region.
You heard that. We urge the US to stop undermining stability in the region, says a country that has undermined peace and stability almost everywhere. You see, the Yellow Sea and the South China Sea are just 2 pieces of this puzzle. China's bullying tactics spread across the length and breadth of the Indo-Pacific region. Now, as I speak, China also has ongoing territorial or economic disputes with countries like South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, Brunei, Laos, and Mongolia. If we speak of Japan, China's fighting it over the Senkaku Islands. They are located in the East China Sea. No one stays here. Japan calls these islands Senkaku. China's named them Diu. If we speak of Indonesia, the fight there is over the Natuna Islands. China has been accused of using intimidating island patrol tactics. Also accused of fishing illegally in waters claimed by Indonesia. China also claims parts of Vietnam, especially the Paracel Islands. In 2020, the Chinese army sank a Vietnamese fishing vessel near the Paracel Islands. The tactic was the same. A Chinese vessel went and rammed the Vietnamese boat. Next, we have Brunei and Malaysia. These countries share the South China Sea, but China wants the sea all to itself. Beijing has developed military bases on islands and created artificial islands. Time and again, it also deploys maritime militia to bully the 2 nations. Where is China going to stop? How many more countries is it going to fight? How many more disputes is it going to ignite? It's perhaps time that all these countries come together to call out China's aggression. On this show, we will certainly continue to do so. Our next story is from Pakistan. Earlier today, it announced a rather controversial decision, a decision to deport illegal Afghan immigrants. Pakistan wants them to go back, leave its soil by October end. The decision was announced earlier today by Pakistan's Interior Minister, Sarfaraz Bukti. Addressing a press conference, he said, and I quote, Afghan nationals would have to leave the country by the end of the month, whether voluntarily or through a forced deportation. If they do not go, then all the law enforcement agencies in the provinces of federal government will be utilized to deport them. Now that's an eviction notice. It's a strongly worded statement. The question is, how many Afghans will this decision impact? Well, last we checked, there are around 1.3 million Afghans who were registered as refugees in Pakistan. Another 880,000 have received the legal status to remain in Pakistan, and this is according to the United Nations. But Pakistan's Interior Minister says that there are another 1.7 million people, 1.7 million Afghans who are living in Pakistan illegally. He says all of them will have to go. The question is, what has triggered this statement? The growing terror attacks in Pakistan, the ongoing border dispute with the Taliban, the influx of Taliban fighters into the TTP? Well, Pakistan has refused to give an exact reason. But it doesn't take a genius to figure out what motivated Islamabad's decision. A concoction of all the questions that I just asked. If we speak of terror attacks, they've risen in number, colossally so. Reports say Pakistan saw a 79% increase in terror attacks this year when compared to 2022. As of today, there have been more than 271 terror attacks. They've claimed the lives of 389 people and injured 656 others. Of course, these attacks cannot be attributed to Afghan nationals, but most of them were orchestrated by the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, an offshoot of the Afghan Taliban which wants to enforce the Sharia law in the country. Reports say scores of Taliban fighters are slowly joining the TTP's ranks. Does this explain the spike in terror attacks? It seems so. Besides this, the situation at the Pakistan-Afghanistan border remains tense. In the last 10 months, there have been at least 4 major incidents when the Taliban has clashed with Pakistani troops. This has led to several border checkpoints getting shut, with Afghan nationals blaming Pakistan for upending their lives. My point is simple. There seems to be a growing anti-Pakistan sentiment within Afghanistan. The frequent clashes between the Taliban and Pakistan, the influx of Taliban fighters into the country, even Afghanistan's decision to ban the Pakistani rupee. They're all a testimony to this growing sentiment. But this cannot be the basis for Pakistan to deport Afghan refugees. At least that's what the Taliban is saying. It is calling Pakistan's decision unacceptable. Its spokesperson, Zabihullah Mujahid, has issued a statement. He has urged Pakistani authorities to revisit this policy. Allow me now to quote his exact words. The behavior of Pakistan against Afghan refugees is unacceptable. The Pakistani side should reconsider its plan. Afghan refugees are not involved in Pakistan's security problems. As long as they leave Pakistan voluntarily, that country should tolerate them. Now, last we checked, Pakistan's Foreign Office was yet to comment on the matter, but some Pakistani lawmakers and activists are voicing their opinions on the issue, and not in the kindest of words. For instance, this is what People's Party Senator Fatahullah Babar posted online. He says the decision is bound to end in a backlash. Allow me to quote, "Once again playing football with refugees, once again manipulating for some other objectives, once again angry knee-jerk reactions, doomed to end in a backlash. Tripartite agreement allows only voluntarily repatriation." The United Nations has also issued a statement. It says, "We have seen disconcerting press reports about a plan to deport undocumented Afghans, and we are seeking clarity from our government partners. Any refugee return must be voluntary and without any pressure to ensure protection for those seeking safety." So now we've told you what's happening, and you've seen the reactions. Let me now ask a question. Is this the end of Pakistan's dream, its dream of strategic depth against India? Its dream of using the Taliban as a proxy against India? I mean, 2 years back, when the Taliban returned to Kabul, Pakistan celebrated its return. It sang songs praising the Taliban. Many Pakistani even unfurled Taliban's flags. And 2 years on, the same Taliban is picking fights with Pakistan. The same Pakistan is asking Afghans to leave. How do we view this? Is Pakistan staring at an abyss of its own making? Is it struggling to deal with the monster that it created? It certainly is. On the other hand, you have India. Look how cordial India's ties with the Taliban are. India is sending tons of wheat to the Taliban. It is helping authorities rebuild the country. It is even training Taliban officials in diplomacy. No one could have seen this coming. A group fed and nurtured by the cantonments of Rawalpindi and Quetta. Being cordial with the country, the same cantonments wanted it to fight. It only proves that no matter which regime Pakistan installs in Afghanistan, Afghans are going to be Afghans. The only ones they listen to are themselves. Shifting our focus to the India-Canada row. Canada alleged India's involvement in Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar's death. Its allegations were very much public, but now it wants private talks. Why? What has changed? Yesterday, reports said that India has asked Canada to withdraw 41 diplomats. Ottawa has 6 days from now to do so. After that, India will revoke their diplomatic immunity. The reasons that New Delhi has given for this reduction are fair. Canada has 62 diplomats in India. India has only 20 of them in Canada. Apart from the Canadian High Commission in New Delhi, Canada has consulates in Chandigarh, Bengaluru and Mumbai. It also has a total of 8 Trade Commissioner Service offices in New Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chandigarh, Chennai, Kolkata, Hyderabad and Mumbai. India, on the other hand, has a High Commission in Ottawa and 2 consulates in Toronto and Vancouver. Of the 20-odd Indian diplomats stationed in Canada, only 12 are in Ottawa, while India has 3 offices in Canada. Canada has 12 of them in India. So India simply wants a diplomatic strength to be equal on both sides, in both countries. It only wants to bring parity. So what is wrong in that? I'm not the one saying this. A couple of weeks back, India's Ministry of External Affairs mentioned this. Spokesperson Arindam Bakshi said, and I quote, "We have informed the Canadian government that there should be parity in strength and rank, equivalence in mutual diplomatic presence. Their numbers here are very much higher than ours in Canada." So what are so many Canadian diplomats doing here in India anyway? Are they here just for appeasement? Now Canada has urged for private talks with India. Why? Does it not have anything public to say? Dear Canada, you made allegations in public and you want resolution in private. How is this justified? Is Canada trying to save face now because its case against India doesn't hold? We are still waiting for Mr. Trudeau to support this so-called credible allegation with some evidence.
Justice system, we allow those justice processes to unfold themselves with the utmost integrity.
Apologies for what took place on Friday and to President Zelensky and the
And whose side is America on? It has had a lot to say lately. The White House has said that the Canadian allegations against India are serious. It has even urged India to cooperate with Canada in its investigations. Let me now read out the whole statement. The U.S. National Security spokesperson John Kirby said, "We've been clear these allegations are serious, they need to be fully investigated. And of course, as we've said before, we urge India to participate actively in that investigation." Yes, indeed, the allegations are serious. That is why we have been asking for evidence. On what grounds did Canada point fingers at India? India's foreign minister has said this multiple times. India is open to looking into anything relevant and specific that Canada may put forward. What more cooperation do the US and Canada want? Ottawa needs to do its part first, present some proof, some evidence, some facts. State Department's deputy spokesperson Vedant Patel also made some remarks. He says, and I quote again, "We continue to be deeply concerned about the allegations referenced by Prime Minister Trudeau and we remain in regular contact with our Canadian partners. It is critical that Canada's investigation proceeds and perpetrators be brought to justice. We also have publicly and privately urged the Indian government to cooperate in the Canadian investigation." Again, I ask, what kind of cooperation is the US expecting from India? Cooperate on what exactly? You see, any investigation is based on facts. You can't probe allegations and hearsay. So America needs to stop intervening and picking sides and focus on its own crises. How about asking Canada to provide some evidence, to release concrete proof to back its claims? Will the US request Canada to do so? I have my doubts. In fact, Washington has voiced support for Canada. The National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that the spat has not caused any friction between the United States and Canada. So let me get this straight. When it comes to countering China, the US wants India's support. When it comes to sanctioning Russia, the US wants India to follow suit. But when it comes to backing India, it is leaning towards the other side. That's hypocritical, to say the least. In other news, Maldives has a new president and his first order of business. It's his poll promise to remove foreign military presence from the country. Without naming India, Mohammad Muizzu pledged to remove the Indian military presence from this small but strategically important island nation. But was it an ill-informed decision? Because the Indian military presence in Maldives is minuscule. It includes 1 Dornier aircraft and 2 helicopters gifted generously by the Indian government. That's it. Take a look at this report.
Is Maldives' new president a puppet in his own country? Or is he a man being misled by ill-intentioned forces? We ask this question because the new president of this small but strategically important island nation has made a significant pledge right after being declared the winner. An ill-informed pledge that will harm the people of Maldives in the long run.
We will be sending back other military forces based in the Maldives, according to the law, and we will do that accordingly. The people who brought other military forces don't want to keep them here. We don't want them to be here, and the people of the Maldives have decided and want to send them back.
That's the pledge of Maldives' new president, Mohammad Muizzu. After a resounding victory in the recently concluded presidential elections, Muizzu has vowed to remove foreign military forces from the island nation. He stopped short of naming which country's troops he will remove. But you shouldn't be surprised if we tell you he was referring to India, the only foreign power with a military deployment in the archipelago. After all, the new president of Maldives is a known ally of China. His entire election campaign revolved around an India out campaign. This decision came after New Delhi placed a small unit of security personnel to operate the 4 Indian aircraft gifted to the Maldives to patrol its vast maritime territory. But Muizzu has brushed aside media descriptions of him as a pro-China leader. He says he will be, quote-unquote, pro-Maldives. It begs the question, why then does the new president-elect want to remove Indian presence from his country? Because the truth is, India's military presence in the atoll state is very small. It includes just 2 Dhruv advanced light helicopters which have been operating in Malé for several years, and 1 Dornier multi-purpose aircraft, which was given to the Maldives National Defence Force in 2020. The Indian government gifted the aircraft to Malé with only one condition. While Maldives will command and control the aircraft, the running costs will be borne by India. The Dornier has since been assisting in joint surveillance activities by India and the Maldives in the exclusive economic zone of the Indian Ocean. It helps keep an eye on seaborne terrorists and enhances Maldives' surveillance abilities. In November 2021, the Maldives National Defence Force revealed that 75 Indian military troops stayed in the Maldives to assist in the operations of the Dornier aircraft and the 2 helicopters. This tiny presence of Indian troops has been projected as a threat to Maldives' security by the Muizzu faction. Muizzu has won the presidential election after defeating incumbent President Ibrahim Soleh. The election was also seen as a determining factor in deciding which country would exert greater influence over the strategically vital archipelago state in the Indian Ocean. The outgoing president, Ibrahim Mohammad Soleh, who was elected in 2018, has faced allegation from Moise that he had allowed unchecked Indian presence in the Maldives. Soli, however, has insisted that the Indian military's presence in the Maldives was solely for the purpose of constructing a dockyard under an agreement between the two governments. Soli had also realigned Maldives' relations with the traditional benefactor India after his predecessor Abdullah Yameen moved to Maldives into Beijing's orbit, borrowing heavily from China for infrastructure projects. Consider this. India provides the largest number of training opportunities for the Maldivian National Defence Force, meeting around 70% of their defence training requirements. In February of 2021, India extended a $50 million line of credit to the Maldives for defence projects. At the same time, New Delhi also signed a deal with the Mali government to construct and maintain a critical naval facility for the country's military. The agreement to develop, support and maintain the Coast Guard harbour in Uttarutila Falhu was signed by Jaishankar and Maria Didi, Maldives Defence Minister. At the time, Didi said that the harbour and dockyard would be another significant milestone. India-Maldives defence cooperation extends to the areas of joint exercises also. The countries carry out war games that began in 2021. In fact, the bilateral relationship with India has helped the Maldives' development story. In the last few months, India has been among Maldives' largest trading partners. The two countries very closely dealt with the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. With tourism being the mainstay of Maldivian economy, the country has become a major tourist destination for some Indians and a job destination for others. Undoubtedly, India plays a pivotal role in the development story of the Maldives. Why then make such claims, Mr. Moise? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The United States, home to the world's most formidable military force, is grappling with a big crisis. It is struggling to fill its ranks. Now you might be wondering, how on earth is this even possible? Well, the US Army is struggling to find recruits, and there are many reasons at play here, and the biggest one is enough to make you do a double take. The American youth is just not interested. Last year, the US Army faced a shortage of 15,000 soldiers. Fast forward to this year, and while things have improved somewhat, there's still a considerable deficit of around 10,000 troops. You might wonder, what's preventing the Army from meeting its recruitment targets? Well, there are two significant factors. Firstly, the Army is on the hunt for talent in an economy that's enticing the youth with better job offers and benefits. A fair reason to ditch the battlefield. Secondly, the pandemic kept recruiters away from high schools, which traditionally serve as prime locations for future soldiers. Third, they say there is a fall in patriotism, love for the country among the Gen Z. There is a feeling of apathy among young people, a feeling of why should I defend a government that doesn't appreciate me? Military analysts say that the younger generation lacks the kind of life experience or formative life events that had inspired earlier generations to serve. Remember, many of the young people in America, especially those born after the 9/11 attack, don't have the same kind of motivation to serve in the military that the earlier generation had. It's either that or just simple pessimism. Those who want to serve are also getting disqualified, rejected on the basis of their physical and mental health. More than 56% of 18 to 25-year-olds are overweight or obese. According to the Johns Hopkins researchers, this means that they can't enlist. According to Western media reports, much of the military will fall short of its recruitment goal this year. It could be 25% short. Not just the Army, the Navy, the Air Force and the Coast Guard are all expected to fall short of their recruitment goal. And as they struggle to attract young people, the military is scrambling for solutions. Several branches recently increased recruitment payouts, long used to attract people with special skills, and widened their availability. Bonuses have been hiked. Some recruitments have been loosened, including prohibitions on hand and neck tattoos and past marijuana use. It's no secret that today's young generation has a different perspective on life, career, and purpose. They're more inclined towards technology, entrepreneurship, and making their mark in the world. So as the American military grapples with this crisis, maybe militaries around the world can take note and make itself a dynamic force for the future. After all, a nation's strength lies not just in its weapons, but in the hearts and minds of the generation that will shape its destiny. Who killed John Fitzgerald Kennedy? 6 decades on, people still have their doubts. The Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated the late American president, that there was only one killer. But new revelations refute this. They indicate that there was, in fact, a second killer. A Secret Service agent who witnessed JFK's assassination has now come out and relayed his version of the story. But before we get to that, let's recall what happened in the public eye. What horror unfolded before the people of Dallas on November 22nd back in 1963. JFK and his wife Jackie sat in a black Lincoln Continental. Their motorcade was led by 2 open-top limousines. It was proceeding at a stately pace through a street lined with people. The President and the First Lady were waving at onlookers. The motorcade was heading towards what was known locally as a triple underpass. Suddenly, JFK was seen clutching his throat. Jackie leant over to attend to him, and instant later, it looked like a lightning bolt struck JFK's head. It was blown up and thrown back. Jackie frantically crawled over the rear seat of the open car and climbed onto its rear deck. She was grasping at something. It was later described as a piece of her husband's shattered skull. Such a harrowing moment. People saw it with their own eyes. In fact, at least 4 people caught it on camera. The most vivid version is that captured by a dressmaker named Abraham Zapruder. A lot of people watched it, but the full version wasn't out until 12 years later. The exact moment in which the bullet strikes Kennedy's head was kept hidden for more than a decade. Why? Because it was too gory to handle. Now you can watch it on YouTube. In the clip, it seemed that the blast came from in front of JFK and blew his head backwards. But it was dismissed as an optical illusion. The Warren Commission concluded that JFK's assassin, Oswald, was positioned behind him. It said that Kennedy was hit from behind. He slammed his chin forward to his chest, and then his head rebounded backwards. But what if? What if there was a possibility that the shot did come from the front? Oswald was standing at the back. He fired shots from a 6th-floor window in the Texas School Book Depository. But was there another gunman positioned in the front of Kennedy? Well, ex-Secret Service agent Paul Landis believes there was. Where exactly, he's not sure. On the day of Kennedy's assassination, a 28-year-old Landis was assigned to protect the First Lady. He was riding on the running board of a black Cadillac behind the presidential limousine. That is when a shot rang out. He soon heard a second one and saw the president's head split open. This he had spoken about earlier, but what I'm about to tell you now are the revelations that he has made after 50 years of silence. On the day of Kennedy's assassination, Landis spotted an intact bullet in the back of the presidential limousine. On finding the bullet, he reportedly pocketed it. He didn't want it to fall into the hands of souvenir hunters or the press. Landis accompanied First Lady Jackie Kennedy into the Dallas hospital as surgeons fruitlessly tried to save her husband's life. Landis found himself next to the president's stretcher. At the end, only one bullet was found, that too on Governor John B. Connolly's stretcher, who was also injured in the incident. Now, the Warren Commission's theory says that Kennedy and the governor were hit by the same bullet, that one of the bullets fired that day entered Kennedy's body from behind, then exited through his throat before striking Governor Connolly. But Landis believes that the bullet he found had only hit Kennedy. If his theory is correct, it could indicate that Connolly was hit by an entirely different bullet, perhaps by one fired by someone besides Lee Harvey Oswald. Initially, the public largely accepted the Warren Commission's version. 87% of Americans polled by Gallup agreed that Oswald shot the former president. But criticism mounted over the next decade or so. It peaked in the late 1970s with the release of the Zapruder film we just told you about. Fast forward to 2017, 61% of adult Americans believe that more than one person was involved in Kennedy's assassination. So, were there 2 gunmen involved? What do you think? These are all, after all, just conspiracy theories. We can only speculate. The lone gunman theory still remains the accepted conclusion. But I ask again, what do you think? Our next story comes from Iran. The country is on edge. A young girl has been hospitalized in Tehran. There are grave allegations from a human rights group. They say she was beaten into a coma by Iran's feared morality police. Her name is Armitha Garawand. Reports say she has sustained a severe physical assault. Footage from the incident has come into question. It shows Armitha being carried off a train by other women at a metro station. Yes, she was assaulted by women, Iran's female morality police. She is then placed on the platform. She lays there, apparently unconscious. This is what we know so far. Armitha has sustained a severe physical assault. She was assaulted by the morality police for not complying with the country's rules on the hijab. This is what reports are saying. Iran's state-run media has published edited footage of the incident. It claims that Armitha, the victim, had fainted after a drop in blood pressure. So she simply fell off a train and lay unconscious. All mentions of Iran's notorious morality police wiped off. A 16-year-old girl has been left in a coma. She's being treated under heavy security after allegedly being assaulted on the Tehran subway. Reports say that Iran's morality police, female-led morality police, is to blame. Let me repeat. Reports are saying that female officers assaulted her. Why? Because she was not wearing a headscarf. Does this sound familiar to you? Are you getting a sense of déjà vu? That's because you've seen this story play out before, almost a year ago to be precise. Remember this face. It's the face which once lit up a billboard in Times Square. It has been painted on murals in Paris and Berlin. There are streets named after her in Vienna and Los Angeles now. But more importantly, she became the face of Iran's revolt against its morality police. Say her name, Mahsa Amini. The story of Armitha Garawand is sadly very similar to the story of Mahsa Amini. About a year ago, 22-year-old Amini died in the custody of Iran's feared morality police. Why was she in custody? Because she had violated the hijab law. The law mandates women and girls cover their hair and bodies. We all know what happened after that. Mahsa's death gave birth to a revolt. Protests nationwide, all led by women and girls. We saw women tossing their headscarves in defiance. They wanted an end to the Islamic Republic's hardline rule. A violent crackdown followed. Thousands were arrested. At least 500 protesters were killed, including teenagers and children. The Mahsa movement, it was called. Some said it challenged the legitimacy of Iran's hardline clerics since it took power in 1979. But did it really? A year later, I'm telling you the story of Armitha. Another woman assaulted by the morality police. In fact, she has been assaulted by female police officers. A year after Mahsa Amini's death, I'm yet again recounting the horrors inflicted by the morality police of Iran. Let me refresh your memory about what this morality police really is. Gasht-e-Irshad, it translates to guidance patrols. The morality police is a unit of Iran's police force. It was established under former hardline president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in 1983. Wearing a hijab became mandatory in Iran, but it was only in 2006 that this dreaded unit began patrolling the streets. Their task was to enforce the laws of Islamic dress code in public. Most of the social regulations are based on the state's interpretation of the Sharia law. It requires both men and women to dress modestly, but it's no secret that the prime target of Iran's morality police have been women and young girls. While the feared outfit paused its patrols after Mahsa Amini's death, the morality police is back on the streets of Iran now. Its mandate is the same. Warn women against breaking the country's hijab rules. Take legal action, arrest them if necessary, detain women in so-called re-education facilities for flouting the dress code. In fact, the regime claimed that they would try a softer approach. Is this the softer approach? Clearly, the morality police has a much darker side. What else explains what could have happened to women like Armitha Garawand, Mahsa Amini, and countless others whose name has not made headlines yet? Question is, will Armitha face the same fate as Mahsa? Rights group says that she's in a coma. Authorities have denied this. One activist says that security forces have forbidden Armitha's parents from posting her picture on social media. Reports say her family is forbidden from talking to human rights groups. In fact, In a video posted on the state news agency, her parents say Armita had suffered a drop in blood pressure. They are parroting the regime's line. So it's hard to make out what exactly happened. What we know is this: another young woman is fighting for her life in Iran. We hope that unlike Masa, Armita lives to tell her story. Do you want to look younger? How much are you willing to change yourself just to look young? In the age of morphed AI images and trends, artificial intelligence is now giving people a rather strange gift. You can now alter your appearance without surgery. A new trend called the AI Yearbook trend lets you imagine how you would look if you were popular in school. AI can change your skin color, alter blemishes, and remove whatever you feel is undesirable. It basically makes you someone you are not. Isn't that sad? Where is the self-love army now? Our next report tells you more.
Wanting to feel young again is nothing new. Earlier, people have used makeup or editing tools to look younger in pictures. But would changing your whole personality be a good way to go? Although AI edits are not something new, a new social media trend called the AI Yearbook trend has got social media talking. Look at these pictures. These are AI edits. Edits of people who look completely different in reality. A new tool gives users a chance to reinvent their high school avatars. Had blemishes as a high school teen? Gone. Had acne? A double chin? Poof! Gone. What's sad about this trend is that it reimagines you as something you never were. The AI makes the user look like the popular kid, like a jock or a fashionista. In fact, the trend lets you change several aspects of your face to an extent where even your family may not recognize you. Thousands of people are loving the trend. But what does this tell you about self-acceptance? Would such trends make people shallow? In the age of body positivity, do these trends just praise the contrary? These questions should be asked to the owners of the photo editing app Epic. Epic's software uses AI to convert ordinary images into traditional yearbook-style images. The software carries out more than just minor edits. It can change haircuts, clothing, frames, and facial expressions. This is not the first time that an AI filter software has made waves. But now we're going from adding only a few details to completely changing body compositions. And how difficult is it for a person to use? It's actually too easy. Get the photo editor app, go to the AI Yearbook option, upload your selfie collection, specify your gender, click the Create Yearbook Images button, select and refine your photo, and then just finalize the photo with a tap. And just like that, you're not you anymore. We're not saying that the innovation is all bad, but there is a dark side to the trend. It could have a severe impact on a person's self-esteem. All of us feel the need to cover up a few blemishes in a picture. There was makeup for that earlier. Now technology is making us erase everything we don't like. We can't lose our identity in order to beautify a photo. Studies show that 80% girls are using AI to modify their pictures. The shocking part is that girls as young as 13 are doing it. Now we have a generation which is growing up on the internet. Should we let AI tell them what acceptable beauty standards are? Will social media trends chip away your self-esteem?
Is Paris a city of love or a city of bugs? Let's talk about the bed bug crisis in France. We broke the news to you and warned you about the bug endemic a month before. Earlier, the problem was only isolated to Paris. But now the whole country is battling bugs. From cinemas to airports, the blood-sucking pests have wreaked havoc on citizens. The government is finally taking a step and has announced emergency measures. It will look into the surging bed bug cases Will the bedbugs compromise the 2024 Olympics? Will Paris become a city of bedbugs? Let's get you the details now. France is ready to host the Rugby World Cup and the Olympics Games in Paris next year. But what is threatening the major sports events are bedbugs. Experts are concerned about the health and safety implications of this endemic. The pests have spread to various parts of France and have invested public spaces like cinema halls, schools, airports, public transportation. Just take a look at these visuals.
Housse de couverture, les draps.
Et il y a beaucoup de mues aussi. Toutes celles qui ne bougent pas bien claires, là, c'est juste des mues. C'est la peau.
Il y a de la surprise. Stéphanie?
Oui.
Là, hop, une là.
Bedbugs are no joke. They are only spreading and spreading fast. So what is the government doing about it? The French government has called for emergency meetings this week and says that it will establish countermeasures against the pests. Meanwhile, the head of the Renaissance Party, Sylvain Malade, says that a cross-party bill will be proposed to combat the scourge of bedbugs. But is it too late? Should the government have acted faster? French officials say that the country is in need of a national prevention plan, an emergency fund, and new public disinfestation services. You see, the government should have been better prepared, as France is no stranger to the blood-sucking pests. Bedbugs have made a resurgence in recent years, and reports say that 1 in 10 flat dwellers have been troubled by bedbugs in the last 5 years. Experts perceive the issue as a question of public health. You see, bedbugs are parasitic insects that feed on the blood of humans. Although they don't spread diseases, a bedbug's bite can cause skin irritation, allergies, itching, and sleep deprivation. Why do I say sleep deprivation? It's because they primarily infest where humans rest, like mattress seams, bed frames, cracks, curves, or behind the wallpaper. The bad news is, right now we're talking about France, but soon these bugs could spread to other countries. How? The answer lies in the way the bed bugs spread. The pests can easily ride on luggage, purses, backpacks, or any other item which was placed on an infested surface. Imagine your aunt who is on holiday in France bringing back bed bugs as souvenirs. Now Paris is set to host the Olympic Games next year, and the nation needs to save its image and sanitation issues before the athletes arrive. Will Paris be able to host the Olympic Games? Will the bug crisis prove to be a health hazard for tourists? How long will the government take to implement strong action? We will have to wait and watch. And that's a wrap on Gravitas for tonight. Thanks for watching with me, Priyanka Sharma, leaving you with Gravitas Images. I'll see you tomorrow.
Pull down, ready? How was that? Ready? Oh, good.
Back on ground.
Thanks.
Yeah. Safe and sound. That was amazing.
Wonderful.
WION, India's global voice.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the